So I typically kick the episodes off by having the guests tell us who they are and what it is they do.
Okay. So I'm Jim Masterson, and I do and teach a form of equine body work that I call the Masterson Method. When I was developing this thing and started teaching it, I was trying to come up with a name because when I was working on horses, I just called it Integrated Equine Performance Body Work because
Mm.
it integrates a lot of different things into body work to help performance. But I was trying to come up with a descriptive name for it when I started teaching it, and I couldn't. So I just decided to call it Masterson Method. But it's a type of body work where you learn to read and follow the responses of the horse as you're working on it, like subtle changes in behavior that correlate to what you're doing with your hands. So the responses to what you're doing as you're working on the horse. And I learned if you start to learn what to look for and follow those responses from the horse, that the horse will lead you to where there's tension in the body and when they release it by changes in behavior. And so it's a type of body work that it's not any one specific modality. It actually, you end up doing lots of different modalities that you didn't even know you knew
Mm.
because you're following the responses of the horse. And it turns out it's super effective because you're working with the horse and with the horse's nervous system to help it release tension. And it's very rewarding because it's interactive with the horse. And getting feedback from the horse is super valuable no matter what modality you're using. But when the horse gets that you're getting what it's saying, the horse really starts to trust you. It has an effect on your relationship with your horse
Mm.
too. So my wife said when I started teaching this, I had to have a 15-second elevator speech. What is it? It's a method of equine body work where you learn how to read and follow responses of the horse to help it release tension in key junctions of the body that most affect performance. So
And
that's the 10-second elevator speech.
so, how did you end up on this path of one, I guess, even starting a bodywork practice of any kind? And yeah, I guess just how did you get involved or interested in bodywork?
I wasn't interested in body work, except over the years I needed massage and chiropractic. But in 1998, I was looking for something to do. My wife and I had just come back from Hawaii, and she's always been a hunter jumper person. And she was riding at a barn here in Fairfield, Iowa, a hunter jumper barn. And the trainer was looking for a groom to go on the road with her to show because some of the clients wanted to show, get out on the road. So the trainer was looking for somebody to haul the horses to the shows and groom them. And I was around horses when I was a kid, and we had our family horse. So I was familiar with horses and I was comfortable with them. So Connolly said, "Why don't you go to work for Val at grooming on the road?" And so I did. And when I was at these shows, we started here in the Midwest and then started to expand out as they were doing better. But I would notice when trainers or owners would have massage therapists or chiropractors or craniosacral therapists work on horses, I noticed these subtle changes in behavior. Like the eye would blink at a certain point, or they would lick and chew or start yawning when they release tension. And that's what got me interested in it. And then a couple of key things. There was one really, really good old horse chiropractor from New Zealand who would come out to the East Coast or to Lexington to adjust horses. He learned from another old guy in New Zealand how to do it. He used very long lever, forceful techniques, but really knew how to read the horse when he was
Mm.
working on it. And he got amazing results. So actually, I wanted to do what he was doing, but he didn't train people. But whenever he was around, I would hold the lead rope for him or drive him around to different barns
Mhm.
and just to be helpful and pick up, learn things. When he made an adjustment, he would step back to what he called see what the horse has to say. And if one of the signs he got a good adjustment, he would step back and the horse would stand there for a little bit and blink its eyes a few times. Then it would start to yawn repeatedly. That was a sign to him that he got a good adjustment. So that was a really interesting thing to me, how the horse was telling you what was going on in its body. That's what got me interested in it.
And so when you say like you're reading a horse, I'm assuming that is it just with your eyes that you're reading them, or does reading them also involve some feel or like how? Because I guess everyone can know that when their horse has a big adjustment and it starts yawning, it's releasing endorphins, whatever. But how do you know to get there is the
Yeah, there's 2 parts to that. One is there's 2 type of techniques that we use in this method, and they develop from just observing people working on horses and watching the horses. One is a very light, using almost no pressure, what I call air gap pressure, just barely touching the and I noticed this, we were at a show that our trainer hired a massage therapist to massage our horses when I was grooming. And this gal would start by running her hands very lightly down the top line of the horse on the bladder meridian. It's a traditional Chinese medicine meridian. That other than that, I know nothing about traditional Chinese medicine, but she would do that to relax the horse and calm the horse and kind of connect with the horse. And I noticed that she was doing that every once in a while. The horse would blink, like a definite blink, not just blinking. And I was thinking the horse is feeling something under her hand and she's not even putting any pressure on it. So she showed me how to do that and how to do where the bladder meridian is and how to do that. And I did that. But when I got to a place where there was a blink, I would stop and just wait and do nothing because I could tell the horse was feeling something there. So I just wait and do nothing. Don't put any pressure on. Don't rub it. Don't do anything. Just wait and keep the horse's attention on it. And the horse might continue to blink. And then at one point, the horse dropped his head and started licking and chewing. And at one point, the horse started yawning repeatedly, like the sign that the chiropractor used as a good adjustment. So that was interesting that if you don't put pressure on, the horse will tell you what's going on. So horses survive. And I just put this together as I worked on horses, but horses survive by blocking out pain and tension. That's how they survive in the wild. If they start to show any sign of lameness, they become a target. And that's why it's not so easy to diagnose lameness in the horse. You have vets that are flexing and watching them trot, and like you'll get 3 vets and 2 different opinions. And it's like they're really good at covering up because that's what they have to do. So I learned that if you don't put pressure on the horse, they have nothing to block, to brace
Mhm.
against. So if you're putting no pressure on and watching for subtle changes in behavior, they'll tell you where there's tension there. And if you do nothing, which I was really good at because I'm naturally lazy and I didn't know what to do anyways, I wasn't trained, just wait there, the horse's nervous system would go from whole blocking it out to releasing it. And then later I learned the bigger words for that were the sympathetic nervous system. If you wait long enough, they'll let go of that blocking out and the nervous system will release it. And they'll tell you with those larger responses like yawning and licking and chewing. So it was just noticing a couple little things and then messing with it. And then I realized they worked. And so I realized they work. So I just continued doing it.
And so you mentioned horses and the light feel. What about a deep tissue massage or something like that to I don't know if is that different because you're personally releasing the tension with a massage versus the light touch is almost
Yeah.
like them releasing the
Yeah. So,
tension?
yeah, you can massage muscles and you can get the muscles to relax and release tension by massaging, which is good. There aren't many modalities that aren't good in one way or another
Mhm.
for the horse. But I learned that when you just bring horses' attention to it and you're waiting for their nervous system to release it, that's just another way of releasing it. And that's one reason it's so effective. When I started developing some techniques and working on hunter jumpers, I was in that environment where it's a pretty competitive performance environment. And so I realized that it worked. And so I think like you hit on it, the difference is rather than the person separating muscle fibers and getting things to let go, you're bringing the horse's awareness to it and waiting for them to let it
Mm,
go. But there's another part of the techniques. There are movement techniques that ask for movement in the joints and junctions and muscles of the horse in a relaxed state,
mm,
not getting them to stretch. But when you ask for movement going down the vertebra of the neck and supporting the weight of the limb and relaxing the scapula, when you ask for movement of a joint or junction and muscle in a relaxed state, it allows the horse to release tension in the muscles and connective tissue associated with that movement.
mm,
So it also helps you find the tension because for example, if you pick up the horse's leg and ask him to relax the scapula and then slowly drop the leg and the foot. So the scapula drops
mm,
in a relaxed state. If there's tension in any of the muscles associated with that movement, as you ask the horse to relax his scapula, when he feels that tension, he'll pull up and tense.
mm.
And where he normally would just be blocking it out if he were moving it. When the horse tenses, if you support it and allow him to relax whatever that tension was, he'll release it. So you're using movement in a relaxed state under the bracing response to where the horse feels the tension and allowing him to relax it. So it's a similar concept as doing the light work. I call it search, response, stay, release with no pressure. You're bringing the horse's awareness to where it's been blocking out tension. And when you keep his awareness on it, and also in the movement, you support it a little bit, he can release it. And then you can go on through the movement. So you're helping the horse with the movement, but it's the horse's nervous system that's telling you where the tension is and when it's released.
Yeah, so it's almost like with the foot thing or
Mm.
picking up their leg, when
Yeah.
they go to pull back, they're just
Oh,
like they're not
yeah.
even thinking of it.
No, they're not even thinking it. Tense and you yield or soften. And then that's the counterintuitive part because when normally a horse tenses, we brace. When the horse braces, we soften and the horse releases some of that tension and
Mm,
then you can move through it. So you're actually the horse is really participating in the process. They're telling you where and you're putting them in a position where they can release it. So it's pretty cool.
Have you ever heard or read the book, The Body Keeps Score?
Yeah, I probably have it. And I read part of it. It got a little heavy for me
Y
in places, so I didn't read all of it because I got what I got. I didn't need too much of the heaviness. But yeah, I know the book.
But yeah, it's just so interesting as I'm just in the middle of it, and as you're talking, it's just so profound how easy it is for humans and horses. I didn't even think about the idea of horses being able to necessarily block out pain, and that being the reason that something is tense. I figured something was tense because they're thinking it's painful. And so to
Yeah.
hear you say that is just interesting about just how similar I think our nervous systems are between horses and
Mhm.
humans.
Horses don't have any option. They have to survive. If they start showing signs of lameness, then they go to the top of the menu. So they don't even think about it.
Yeah.
They don't analyze things like we do. We analyze what we analyze. I think the horse, when it knows it's compromised, it just does all it can to not show it until the point that it starts to show it. Until either it goes lame or it starts to misbehave. A lot of times the horse is
Mhm.
misbehaving because it's physically uncomfortable, or when it starts to start to affect its performance. So a horse that can canter well on both leads, all of a sudden he has trouble cantering on the right lead. There's a reason he didn't just decide. They didn't all get together that night and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
let's not enter on the right lead tomorrow." So it starts to show up at some point where that's how they have to deal with it. But off the bat, they really have no option except to just ignore it. And I really mean no option. It's not like they even don't even know they
Yeah.
have an option. No option.
I've been on this kick of horses with behavioral loops, and horses are so good at just obviously they don't really have much of a choice, but they're just so good at being present and just blocking things out. And sometimes I notice if you have a horse that like always does this one thing, like where does that start? And I use a mounting block as an example where, like, sometimes you get up on the mounting block and, like, you put your foot in the stirrup and you go to swing up on that horse, and they're already walking off because they're anticipating, like, what's to come. And it's almost I'm thinking of your picking up the leg example, and, like, how many horses do riders work with where, like, you pick up a hind leg and immediately they snatch it up? And then they might relax down and whatever, but you almost never get that, "Oh, okay, I can just calmly pick up my leg," where you're almost saying once you get them to break that loop of they're gonna pull back, but if you
Yeah.
stay there with them and whatever,
Yeah.
it's
So anytime you're moving, using your hands on the horse with this method of body work, whether you're asking for movement or picking up a leg or anything, anytime the horse braces or pulls, you have to yield. You can't
mm,
weak tend it grabs. Anytime there's resistance or bracing or resistance, you soften the second it happens. So then, so like you said, that's how you break that part of that
yeah,
particular
yeah.
loop would be when the horse starts in some, you get really good at it after a while. You learn to soften even before the horse starts to tense. Then they relax whatever what they were starting to tense.
Mm,
Do you know Dr. Peters, Dr. Stephen Peters? Your horse's
yes.
brain? Yeah. And I do clinics with him and with Mark Rashid, and they're really interesting. And I learn a lot just doing the clinic with them. But horse is doing something for a reason. So it's either, it doesn't, if it's not what you want, like you go up to the mounting block and the horse walks off, it's because he doesn't know what you want, or that's what he's learned to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes we blame it on the horse. Oh, he's being a jerk. They don't know how to be a jerk. They either don't understand or they've been, that's how they've learned to do it, or they're afraid or they don't feel safe. Oh,
Exactly, and there's so many. I always try to tell people, like, there needs to be a baseline where because so many people can't tell tension. People when the horse snatches its leg up, people might associate that with, "Oh, yeah, I know that this is, connected to their SI or this is connected," but they don't necessarily think, "Oh, this is my horse showing tension."
I see what you mean. The horse is talking to them
Yeah, and to them,
when he
it's
does
like
that.
this thing that they almost like equestrians are really good at accepting. "Oh, yeah, this is just how my horse is."
Yeah.
Where, like, sometimes I come in and I'm like, "Oh, no, they're actually telling you that they're not standing for mounting block because their saddle actually doesn't fit. And
They're
they're not
uncomfortable.
doing anything over here because they're a really good boy, but this is their way of explaining to you what's going on." And, yeah, maybe we can just chat about when you say tension, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What is
Okay,
tension?
yeah, well, it's tension. So it's, I use it as kind of as a generic term for resistance, but it can be pain or it can be restriction. It can be tension,
Mm.
could be sore muscle. And then in a relaxed state, when you get all the muscles around that relaxed and you ask for the movement. If you hit a spot where the horse feels tension, like a little muscle spasm or pain, like a knot, or it's just tight, where it's uncomfortable, then because muscles contract and let go, they don't push, they only pull together and let go. So through repetitive movement, for example, tighten, let go, tighten, let go, tighten, tighten, tighten. Pretty soon they're just tight. So when you're going through the range of motion in a relaxed state, the horse feels that pain and then he tenses, he pulls away. But there's also a restriction, which is more like over time, you put a saddle on the horse's back that doesn't fit properly. The back's going to get sore. The muscles in the back are going to get sore. And if you keep putting that saddle on and don't fix it, they're going to get sore and then they're going to get tight. Then they're going to be sore and tight. They're not going to have the range of motion anymore. And then if you keep putting on the saddle, pretty soon horse isn't going to feel a thing, but his back's just going to be frozen. The muscles are going to be, so that's restriction. There's no pain at all at that point. It's just the muscles have just tightened up and then there's no feeling. So that's restriction. So that would be tension, but I call that restriction. It's not soreness. It's just restricted in movement or an old injury, say an old fetlock injury or flexor tendon, and the fetlock might not, it might have a limited range of motion, but it's no longer sore. Kind of like when you sprain your ankle, it'll be sore and then eventually the soreness will go a bit way, but that'll be restricted in movement.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually twisted my ankle like last winter,
Mm.
and that thing, I've broken my ankle plenty of times, and it was not nearly as much of a pain in the butt to rehab as my
That,
sprained ankle because I
yeah,
had to be so like, when you break a bone, it's put in a cast. You don't really have to worry about it. You get put out of the cast, you get put into physical therapy, cool. Like, you
yeah.
do your exercises, whatever. When you have a sprained ankle, like, all of a sudden, everything around it is compensating to not move it, but then you don't wanna not move it because you don't wanna lose
Mhm.
the mobility in the
Yeah.
joint.
Wonder, yeah, if also there's scar tissue involved with soft tissue injury. So maybe that also causes restriction at the end, more restriction. But when it's immobilized in a cast, once the initial pain goes away, then you're out walking around all over with a
Exactly,
cast.
yeah. And you don't necessarily have to even think about the healing process. Where, like, when you have something that hasn't necessarily required, like, immobilization to that extreme, you
Mm,
can put yourself. I'm sure it's the same as horses, where this is why limited turnout is a thing when you're rehabbing an injury because horses are bound and possessed to go out in the field and bronc around and, "Oh, okay,
mm,
they landed funny from that
yeah,
airborne maneuver," and now
yeah,
you've gotta do all this stretching and mobility stuff with them
yeah.
because they'll just
Mhm,
develop that scar tissue. What are You do a lot of clinics, you see a lot of I'm sure you see a lot of horses and a lot of different
mhm.
types of horses.
Yeah.
Are there some common things, whether that's behavioral issues, whether that's just tension or things that you're feeling with your hands or whatnot that you're seeing either more commonly or just overall you've noticed this trend of horses always they're really sticky in the lateral work or horses are really stuck
Mhm.
in their pole or is there.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things that are common to all horses, like tension in the pole and atlas is huge in the horse. Anything going on in the body will create tension in the pole and the atlas.
Mm,
But some things will directly, like dental issues, TMJ goes right to that's
mm,
sore front feet will create tension in the pole and the atlas. And often on the same side as the foot. If you have a right front foot that's sore over, or even not over a long period of time, pretty quickly, they're going to be really tight in the pole and
mm,
atlas on the right. And because compensating every stride,
mhm,
right? Every stride they're compensating. So pole atlas is the biggest thing. And also when you release tension in the pole and the atlas, that's the first step to releasing tension in the rest of the body. So that's probably
mm,
the most important junction. But other common things, let's say they have soreness in the right front foot and over time, it doesn't have to be huge, just a little bit. Then they're going to get tighter in their right pole and upper neck, and then they're not going to bend as easily to the right. And I
mm,
find that, like for me, 8 or 9 out of 10 horses bend easier to the left in the
mm,
neck. They get tighter in the pole on the right. And I don't know if that's because of the rider or because they're just naturally born that way. They'll bend more easily to the left and they'll corkscrew to the right and they flatten their neck and flatten their head and go like that to the right rather than bending like this. So that's common. But the other backs, sore backs can come from lots of things, not just the saddle, compensating for both front feet sore. They shift their weight to the hind. And I guess it leads to that. The next thing is what causes what we're finding in the body. It's caused by everything's caused by something.
mm,
Any tension in the body is caused by something. And it's not usually going to be even tension, but feet, foot, and leg issues, big cause of tension in the body in different areas. Dental issues, not just floating the edges, but the teeth have to be balanced to the body. The whole TMJ and teeth are like a support system for the horse's body. And when they're overfloated or they get out of balance, it's not just affecting the TMJ, it
mhm,
affects the whole body. The way they're being ridden is huge. If they're being forced into the bit and forced into collection, that's not balanced. They're not going to have balanced development and strength in the body. They're going to have very tight jaw and TMJ, and they're going to be very sore and tight in the hamstrings because they're being pushed into the bit.
mm,
They'll be inverted in their back. And so that's a big one is just the way they're being ridden or conditioned.
mm. So how would I say I'm an untrained horse person in terms of putting my hands on my horse and feeling my horse. How do I know that my horse's hamstrings are tight?
Let's see. There's a couple ways that you probably could start exploring that. And the first is to do that bladder meridian
Mm,
technique I was talking about, which is on our website for free. I want
mhm,
everybody to learn how to read their horse's subtle body language, but also to find out what's going on with their horse's body. So the bladder meridian runs from the pole along each side of the top line down to the croup, and then it splits off and goes down each hind leg. So as you're going along, you'll see where the horse is giving you responses. I call it search, response, stay, release. So you go lightly and lightly, which is hard for people to put no
mhm,
pressure on the horse. They think 5 pounds is no pressure, but no pressure means 0 pound. And slowly go along and watch for the responses. And then when you search for a response, you stop and wait there till you get a larger response. The horse will tell you on its body by its responses where it's
mhm,
feeling stuff. And so that's one way you get to the hamstrings, or it'll usually start before that, up in the croup and the gluteals, and you go down the hamstrings and they're blinking. And then you get down to the hock and they pick up their leg. You're not even touching the hock. They're
mm,
probably telling you they're sore hocks. So that's a good way to see, just to see what's going on with your horse's body. Or you can palpate with your fingertip or the back of your nail and palpate muscles all over the body. And the
mm,
horse will flinch away from
mm.
you. If we're sore somewhere and I don't know, wherever my calves. And if you drive your finger down my calves, I'm going to react. Most people have pretty tight calves and they're sore when you push on it if somebody else grabs them.
Yeah.
So you can palpate, use a pressure, or you can just go using no pressure and paying attention to what the horse is saying.
How important do you think it is? How often should owners be putting their hands on their horses? Not just brushing, not just grooming, but like hands to horses, like before every ride, once a month.
just in general.
You maybe just in general, just to check in, just to one, I'd assume they'd probably have to do it a lot in the beginning to develop what
Just
their
yeah,
horse
just to
feels
see.
like, but,
Yeah, right. You just I can't even put my hands on a horse without paying attention closely to
yeah.
what it's saying with its eyes. You just go right up to a horse and put your hand on, and to us that would be normal, but to the horse, if you're watching, they stop blinking. Their eyes might get a little bigger than that. I can't even put my hands on the horse without starting very lightly, not like delicately, "Oh, I'm gonna hurt you," but just not just putting my hands on and then paying attention to what they're saying. So, it just becomes a habit. Every time you're around your horse, you can ask what's going on with its body
And
by searching. You can do this anywhere on the body. You don't have to do it on that bladder meridian.
and
I'll just walk up and the back might look a little tight. So my hand will just go to the back and I'll search lightly there and just see and watching the horse's his face and his eyes. Maybe some horses are blinkers, some horses are lip twitchers. So just watching or see when you put your hand somewhere if the horse just internally tenses up or internally relaxes. You can see externally when they're relaxed or when they're tense. If you start paying a lot closer attention to your horse's subtle body language, because that's how they communicate in the wild. They don't have a huge vocabulary. So anytime you put your hands on, we've had a lot of people go through our courses and a lot of people are trained in this. And a lot of horse owners just go to the weekend to learn how to do these techniques and how to read the horse. But it changes the way you interact with your horse once you really start paying attention. And they start to trust you because they know you're paying attention on their level of body language. We think of him as a big, huge, strong, unpredictable creature, but there's his whole other side before you even get there.
it's always so interesting when, because as horse professionals, I feel like just because we look at horses so often, it's very easy for us to sometimes pick up the subtle things, even if we're not always aware that we're doing it, just
Yeah.
based on
Mhm.
sheer numbers. I was actually working with a client who had a horse who didn't want to get on the trailer. And the woman originally kept using the term stubborn. She was like, "Oh, she's just being stubborn. She's just being stubborn." And then one day she was doing it and she was like, "Oh my God, I just looked at her eye and realized she's afraid of the trailer." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yes, this is,"
You,
and
you go
like,
through this process of first learning. She's being a jerk. She's
yeah,
stubborn. Eventually you start to notice other little things. Yeah, I know what you mean.
exactly. And I,
That's how I learned. That's how I learned.
exactly,
That's how I learned. I used to
exactly.
loading a trailer, I think, and get frustrated. And then I slowly, especially after doing this work, I realized horses do everything for a reason. They don't just do it because.
Yeah,
And
no, and it's so true. I sometimes, like, my number one mission is to just change verbiage around horses because so often when we're in situations like, I could have the best, softest cowboys on this podcast, and everyone can admit that at some point they've been standing at a trailer with a horse and we're
yep,
not the best version
it's
of a horse person.
yeah.
And so I think it's very, but as humans, it's so easy to see, "Oh, okay, the horse isn't doing said thing, ergo is being bad," versus horse is doing this thing,
Right.
planting at the trailer is
Yeah,
that cliche, "It's not that you have to, it's that you get to."
that's a good one.
And so sometimes when I'm working with horses, especially if I'm having a tricky day where, yes, sometimes these people who work full-time jobs, at the end of the day, they just wanna go to the barn and have a ride. It can be very frustrating when things are not
When
necessarily
it's not a
happening
good
in a desirable.
when it's not a good day for
Yeah,
whatever reason.
and,
It might be the person's bringing the energy to the barn, or it might be something's been going on there that got the horse worried about something else. We always associate it with us.
exactly.
He doesn't like me, or he's not doing this, and I'm taking because he doesn't like me, or because not respecting me. The horse is doing it's there. He's planting his feet over there. He's doing what a horse does, and we take it on. He's doing it because of me, and he's not. He's doing what a horse does in that situation. Which, if he's worried, he's not going to go there, or he's going to want us to check it out. And we have our egos are so huge that, and me too. I'm a human. It's we and it immediately take it as they're doing it to us, and he's not doing it what a horse does in that situation, and we happen to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to think of it because
Uh,
it is so true to realize that it's all communication, right? And I've had that same client with the trailer actually the other day. She was like, I realized all of my horses, they get into this type of situation and they do this like big gulp thing. And I didn't have an answer for her, but I was like, you're noticing like these subtle things that I think so many
mm,
people take for granted, either in human to human relationships, but especially in horse to
mm.
human relationships, where we we do take things so personally. It could have literally 0 things to do with us.
Dealings.
We have no
They're
idea.
dealing with this survival. They're with a survival situation in their
Mhm.
mind. It's survival for them. That trailer, getting in that trailer, like they're scared, whether it's
Exactly.
real or not. They're scared.
And it's so hard to
Yeah.
this thing that I've been doing lately, which is funny, but when a horse starts to do something, I'll pause and I go, "Your feelings are valid." Because I know they're working through something and I'm just on their back for this journey or whatever. And I'm sure there are times where you're working on horses and they'll come at you with a hoof and you're like, I hear ya. We're doing this right now, but your feelings are valid.
Yeah.
Your feelings are valid. You're allowed to feel this way because you self are a being with your own emotions and whatnot. It's not about me.
Yeah.
And that's helped, especially with my
Yeah.
own
Because
horse.
if we think it's about us, then we're going to try to rush them through it because we're
Mhm.
trying to get to our goal. What's our goal? We want them to do this or to do that. Or just give the horse time to figure out what's going on. And we don't do that.
Mm.
It doesn't mean don't go.
Yep.
Don't cross the stream. It means pause and let the horse figure it out. And then maybe you're going to pause. If every time you try to cross the stream, it turns into a battle, maybe the time you pause until give the horse a chance to figure something out and then leave and come back and do it again. So you want to help them through it. We want to do it on our agenda, not on
Mhm.
their agenda.
I was listening to a business podcast not too long ago, and the guy was giving sales advice. And he said, I always tell my salespeople after they've given you 3 rejections and you hit them with this, don't say anything until they say something. The pause, that space of time gives them the ability to work through what it is you've just put in front of them. And then they feel the need to rise up to it and answer it. And because humans get very uncomfortable with space.
Well, we
Uh,
need to always be doing something or have something happening.
exactly.
Because
Yeah.
when you pause, you're actually taking you're taking pressure off of you in that situation. You're taking pressure off the other person when you pause. It's a different type of pressure. It's maybe pressure coming, internal pressure with the
Mhm.
human. But when you pause, and I call it stepping back, see what the horse has to say and just wait. That's the search response. Stay, the wait part. You're giving that other person horse a chance to really feel what it feels like without any pressure. Because horses pick up on your agenda. If you have any agenda, they pick up on it and they pick up on your intention. So that pause takes the intention off. I don't know how many times I'm working on a horse and I step back, and this happens teaching and everything. Step back, see what they have to say, step way back, and just it gives them a chance to see what they have to say. But then you're waiting. They don't show you any sign of release. And as soon as you start talking to somebody over there, they start yawning.
Mm.
As soon as you really take the pressure off, and like loading a horse, you think this horse is never going to get on. And you're having standing there at the door to the trailer and you think he's never going to get on. And then all of a sudden he steps on as if
Mhm.
he was fighting it for his life, like
Exactly.
5 minutes ago. And then you stop and then you wait. And then all of a sudden it's, when I'm doing the body work and you're searching and you get a response and you wait until you get a release. The question is always, how long do you wait? Do you wait till something happens? That's how long you wait. And that's up to you. But I always say, if you wait 20 more seconds after you decide you're waiting long enough, often you'll get the horse will
Mhm.
release because you've let go of something.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, your story with the salesman, the pause,
Yeah.
how potent that is. They're strong. Or
No,
I don't know, potent, but yeah.
but yeah, no. And I think expectation is such a big word because I have show horses and they're event horses and jumpers. And I've recently started doing I don't have any shows for a few months, and so I've recently started doing this thing where I bring my trailer out and I do groundwork around the trailer. And I might even be in the trailer, and the horse's job for that day is to just wait at the bottom of the ramp. And I've been doing this to train myself out of the intention of getting horses
Oh,
on the trailer.
yeah. You're training we always think
And
we have to train our horse. We
exactly.
need to
And
train ourselves.
I realized that I tend to have the biggest problems trailing my horses when I have to be at the vet's at 3:15, even if
Mhm.
there's no necessarily I have no whips, I have no anything, there's no pressure on the horse. My expectation is enough pressure for that horse to be like, this does not feel good. And
Yep.
so the funny thing is that I had one horse who has had really bad trailer experience. She's flipped herself over in the trailer. She's a really anxious par. And within 3 sessions of me having no intention of getting her on the trailer, she has started stepping on the trailer all on her own accord. And I told my fiance, I was like, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start setting a timer for myself. So if in 20 minutes or whatever, I just stop and am done. And that way I can, when I actually do have a time, I can still work on not putting that pressure.
You
Yeah,
have a little internal timer that's going to go off in 20 minutes, and
mhm,
that gives you permission to not rush it. Right?
exactly. And
Good idea.
it just, because it's,
It's a whole new thing, training yourself
mhm,
to put your horse on the trainer
yeah,
on the trailer rather
exactly.
than training the horse to get on the trailer.
It's so funny because I'll have clients who they never have an issue getting horses on the trailer. And at some point, you have to go, half the horses that I have don't want to get on the trailer. And
Mm.
90% of those horses have not necessarily had a bad trailer experience. So
Yeah.
then they get on the trailer. I think there's some subset of horses that muscle through their feelings and refuse to release their feelings. And so
Yeah.
despite the feeling, they'll get on the trailer.
Yeah.
Where then there are horses that, because of the feeling, they're not getting on the trailer.
Right.
So I find those horses that are willing to muscle through a bit tougher to work with because I really have to like be present and conscious with myself because I almost have to prevent them from getting on the trailer because they just will.
Yeah.
And I want them to get on because it feels like a good place
Not just
in
because
spite
they,
of.
yeah, because they're afraid of the consequences.
And I'd be interested if you notice, like with body work, if there are some horses that just really struggle to let go.
Like, there's so many horses are so different. And from, say, the bodywork point of perspective, when I was working on lots of hunter jumpers, like 50 a week during
Mm,
the season in Wellington. And I'd work on them every week or every couple weeks, some of them. And I could tell the ones that were really tough, like they would start to get a sore front foot. They get sore both front feet, but usually one is more sore than the other. They
mhm,
start to get a sore foot, come back a week or two later. They're just tighter and tighter on the right, but they get tight everywhere. And on the left hind, there's a diagonal compensation. They get tighter and tighter and tighter. They just tough it out.
mm,
And then eventually when they go lame, like it's time, like they
yeah,
really need to be treated. And there are other horses where I'd go, I could tell they were shifting. They'd start to get sore on one foot in the front and they'd shift to the other foot. And the
mhm,
next time I'd feel because there's like the pectorals and other muscles that tighten up. I could feel this horse is compensating side to this side now
mm,
and that side. And especially the longer the shoeing cycles got. But it's funny because the barn managers or the trainers or the riders, they would say, yeah, she's a, what you call a drama queen.
mm,
There's horses that they need to express everything
yeah,
right
yeah,
now. And then there's horses that are just tough.
mhm,
They just stick with it until something goes. So from the bodywork point of view, but even I got two Morgans when they were 2 and 3 and they were brother and sister and he's still alive. He's 32. She passed away a couple of years ago, but I got them when they were young. And the mare, man, she was just, it's funny because she would do anything. She would do anything riding her. She would learn. Well, first time I got on her, I just was sitting on the fence and I slipped over on her back, slid over on her back while she
mm,
was eating. No problem. And her
yeah,
brother was much more, he's a little spookier, but he held it in. And he would spook in place when you're riding him if you got scared. He wouldn't
yeah,
pin out from under you. So my wife really loved him because he'd take care of her even if he was
Mhm.
scared. But the difference in personalities between those two. And then just loading them. I think the first time she was so used to following me and we just walked on and she got on. I don't know if it's always a trailering issue. It's more of a leading issue. They'll follow you anywhere on a loopy lead rope and
Mhm.
you walk in. And then he was a little more worried, but then as soon as she was in, pretty soon they just go in
Yeah.
on their own. The difference in personalities, pretty clear. Everybody knows that who has horses, I think. They recognize a horse's personality, but some are just tough. They'll just tough it out, and others will compensate or do some change things a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I have these 2 horses right now, and they're owned by the same person, and one of them is this chestnut warm blood mare, has been basically pampered her entire life that she has been owned by this adult amateur. She's a good girl, but she's that, "Oh, no, I absolutely cannot work today. My saddle pad is not exactly where it needs to be, and I am a little sore in my hamstring," and she
Mhm.
lets you know what's going on.
Yeah.
This her second horse is this thoroughbred mare, and this thing, she, like, broke her hook. And the vet did not think this horse was gonna be able to come back from this injury, and I swear to God, this horse willed herself to come back from this injury. And she is walk, trot, sound, and I'm like, I palpate her and I'm like, "This horse could be absolutely crippled," and she just refuses to let
Uh-huh.
anyone know. 'Cause
Hmm.
she and again, doesn't no behavioral problems, no she just is such a little workhorse that when she actually had the time off, she did not like it or appreciate it. She really likes the kind of mundane day-to-day life of just being in a program, where this other horse is, if I don't have the right fly spray and get linimented after my ride
Yeah.
and this, that, and the other thing, I absolutely
Mhm.
cannot deal.
Yeah.
And it really is funny because I'm always like, as much as you worry about the one that's not necessarily showing you everything, you go, "Yeah, but she wants to do it,
Mhm.
and she wants to be
Well,
here, and if she didn't, Source could easily she's athletic enough, we'd all be in trouble." And she just every day comes out, and she's just, "Okay, yep,
yeah.
I'm here, I'm cool," and the other one comes out, and you know exactly what kind of day she's having.
Yeah.
And it's so funny
Yeah.
because 2
Night and
horses
day.
owned by the same person,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and I think that one I look at those kind of things as I'm not an expert on herd dynamics or psychology or anything. When I see that kind of those 2 different horses, for example, that's their job in the herd in the wild has something to do with the way they
Mhm.
are, rather than getting anthropomorphizing too much and making it too much into a human thing, because
Mhm.
then we go down that path.
Yeah.
That whatever that horse's job in the herd was supposed to be, that's who they are.
Mm.
Like the little princess might be her job was to spook at the smallest critter a mile away to
Exactly.
make her job was,
Exactly.
and the other job was to know we're going to push through this and make them brave, for example.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I like to think of first thing like whatever this horse is, the way it is, it has something to do with its job in the herd in the wild, rather than starting to make up human excuses for
Mhm.
it. It is fun, but I don't find it helpful to go down that road too deep or too far down that
Yeah,
hole.
I do think the anthropomorphizing thing is it's different as a professional talking to a professional because we understand that at the end of the day, these are herd animals that have
They're not
stand
humans at the end of the day.
and humans, just recreational riders who maybe only have one horse and don't
Mhm.
necessarily understand herd dynamics. When they start anthropomorphizing, it's more of a they're bringing the horse into the human where we're trying to dissect horse behavior. And that's a nuance that I don't think gets talked about enough when anthropomorphizing comes up. The words are all being used to help us understand the
Yeah,
horses.
as humans. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. We're using our language and observing in our language, so it's helped to relate to how we would feel in a situation.
Or just
But
to
at
give
the end,
word to the
you give
behavior.
at the end of the day to realize that
Mhm,
they're not a human and that they're motivated by different things. Like we don't, their
mhm.
primary thing is survival, is safety. That's their primary thing. And ours isn't always safety. Ours is Are we going to have fun, or is this going to be rewarding and fulfilling, or am I going to reach my goal of this
Exactly.
versus am I safe? That's their first thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, this has been an excellent conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. How do
Mhm.
people find you, follow along with what you're doing, all of that good stuff?
Our website, mastersonmethod.com, is easy to remember. And we teach courses all over the country and the world. We have 60 instructors around the world. Weekend courses just to get started. I want horse owners to be able to do these bodywork techniques on their own horses.
Mhm.
And then we have an advanced 5-day advanced course, and you can go on from there if you want. But the first thing is just to learn how to work on your own horse. And you can go on our website or our YouTube channel or our Facebook page and all of that.
Cool.
And on our YouTube channel, we have lots of video clips on how to do different techniques. I want people to try it and see if it works for them or if it's their thing. And then if they want to learn more, they can go to the website and buy the Beyond Horse Massage book or DVD or look for a course. But a lot of this stuff, once you just learn the basics, you can apply them to your horse, see if you like it or if it's going to be helpful for you or your horse. If you'd rather do something different or just keep going the way you're going.
I think the
I tend to,
YouTube videos are a good resource.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and
So
that bladder meridian technique, it's on our website for free, 17-minute video on how to do that, and what to look for
mm,
so people can what to look for. The lighter you go, the deeper the horse is feeling it through their nervous system
mm,
and fascia probably. So when you're working in one area of the horse, if you're doing the bladder meridian, you might be working in the lower neck area, in the withers area. And often some horses, you'll see them stomp their hind foot or kind of kick at their belly. They're feeling something up in their groin and you're bringing their attention
mm.
to it in the lower neck and withers area because there's fascial connections between it. So you don't have to know what those connections are. But my point is that when you're doing this really light work on the horse's body and you know what to look for, it can tell you all kinds of things. He is a little bit weak on the right hind or something like
Mhm.
that. So anyways, I'm just plugging the bladder meridian. It's more than just watching for a blink and waiting for a yawn. Mm.
That's good to know. Cool.
Okay.
Well,
I
thank you
enjoyed this
much.
conversation.